Hey, 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 my sexy biz babes. Today we have a podcast that you've been needing to listen to in your dating life. And honestly, even if you're in a couple or in a relationship, married, whatever, you should still listen to this to identify the red flags and kind of see what needs to be fixed or helped or whatever. So if you want a really healthy relationship, listen to this. We're going to be talking about red flags and warning signs. Okay, so I have an awesome guest on today, Tawny Loveless. She's a love and empowerment coach, and she wrote the book Red Flags Explained. You know what? It's so nice. It's like this cute little book, and it's great to take with you dating, look at it over and over. So go ahead and introduce yourself to the sexy biz babes.
Hey, sexy biz babes. My name is Tawny Loveless. I'm a love and empowerment coach, previously a motivational men's love coach. And I transitioned recently to love and empowerment because I still had women reaching out and I was working with women as well. And to be honest with you, when it comes to dating and love, we have to be able to, we got to connect. So if I can work with some men, I can work with some women and we can connect. And ultimately, I changed it to empowerment coach because that's really what it is. You have to feel empowered. Got to love yourself. That's where it stems from. It's all these mindsets that are, mental blocks that are holding you back. So ultimately, it just kind of came together. I love to empower people, motivate people. I'm like the number one like wing woman. Like I can have someone feeling like you can't sing, but I bet next week you'll feel like you could walk on that stage on America's Got Talent. So
Ooh, I
I think,
love that.
yeah,
Ooh, so you coach men. This is perfect.
yeah,
I coach mostly
yeah.
women. So what kind of do you coach on for men? First loving themselves, empowerment, but like do you help with them dating, communication, like what types of things?
Yeah, so I have a level up program, which is a 4-week accelerated program. And that's just to really help you. I mean, obviously, it starts with you. So it's kind of getting more self aware, building confidence, clarity, all of that. And then there's the level up 2.0, which is all like the tactics, right? Like, how do you approach women? Let's update your online profile and so forth. I also do breakup recovery. A lot of my clients are divorced men. They're getting back out there. They're also trying to recover from divorce. And so I have a breakup blueprint that I work with. That's a program. And then I have an empowerment program, which is just all of this combined, getting you to be like reach your full personal potential. Because when you own who you are, everything is going to change in your dating life. So
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, we work on everything because everything's
Ooh,
important, right?
yeah, that's great. Love that. How
Yeah.
long have you been doing this?
I have been in this field for probably about 10 years, but I've been online for the last three. For 3 of those years, men's motivational love coach. And then just probably in the last 2 months, maybe I just transitioned to love and empowerment.
Nice. So
Yeah,
exciting. It's
thank
good to
you.
have all those different buckets and be able to
Yeah.
help a lot of people. Okay, so let's dive into red flags. First of all, I would like to know, when do you identify them? Is it right at the beginning? And then how many is, let's just start with that one. So, do you start identifying them at the beginning, even text or meeting them in person?
I mean, that's the awareness, right? You got to step back and you just got to be ultimately observant because it can happen as early as the first phone call. They can happen as late as a year into the relationship, right? Or, 2 months into dating. So it's really about being more self aware and being observant. But, like if you read the book, it's kind of like we bypass red flags. A lot of people can tell you what the red flags are. We bypass them because we don't want to look like that person. Like you don't want to be on that date and say, wait, did you say you're going with your baby's mama where? Or, like you don't want to ask those questions because you don't want to look nosy or like that person. Or it just feels so fucking good. Oh, I don't know if I can curse, but
Yes.
it feels so fucking good that you're like, fuck it. You know what I mean? Like I just want to feel this like this energy and this motivation. So I don't care.
Yeah, bypass it because you're
Yep.
enjoying yourself. So,
Yeah.
I recently bypassed because I was like, who cares? Like, I just want to, like, just to be honest, I was like kind of just wanting to hook up. So,
Yeah.
like, like, who cares? We're having fun. Like, this isn't like a serious thing. Like, I just want to like have fun tonight. And then I just bypassed it. And I think there was another red flag that I bypassed. He ended up being crazy and the cops called
Oh
because
wow.
he wouldn't leave my house. So
Yeah.
don't bypass them. So let's dive
Yeah.
into them. So, what are some of the biggest red flags?
Here's a lot. We bypass, and they're all kind of big dependent upon the person, right? You got to know what, and listen, not all red flags are deal breakers, right? Red flags sometimes are like, for instance, I had a lot of people reach out to me because one of them is like, a red flag if they're divorced or coming out of a long-term relationship. Listen, it doesn't mean it's a deal breaker, because maybe it's a time for a conversation, because you could say, okay, so tell me a little bit more. Are you currently separated? The conversation opens the door for him to be authentic and real and say, yeah, we've actually been separated for 4 years. We've been dating other people. This is why it's delayed. And then you can make a wiser decision, right? Because you have the information you need. But I think it just is based upon, there's so many different ones. Like one of the ones I think men need to be more aware of, because when you read this book, a lot of people read it thinking, oh, my ex is like this. You can identify 4 or 40 red flags your ex had. But it's almost like reverse engineering. You can read the book and find out if you are waving any of those red flags, because some of the red flags I used to wave to dudes are in that book.
Yeah.
Like for men, one thing they need to be aware of is a lot of men go on dates and try to sell themselves, talk about the house, the car, the boat, all the things they can do for you. And it's like, okay, that's a red flag. Like, shut up and learn about me if you're interested. And a red flag that I used to do was like, I used to tell, I'd be in a relationship and they want to go to the next level. And I would just say, well, let's just go with the flow. Knowing the reason I'm saying going with the flow is because I'm not ready to go to the next level and I still want to figure out what's going on. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, some of these red flags, um, they don't have to be big deals, but if you have a lot, maybe. So
Yeah.
let's talk about this. So I would say there are some red flags that are a little bit more like, ooh. And
Yes.
then even when you're dating, I'm new to dating. I mean, not
Okay.
new. I'm back single fully, ready to date, but I'm
Okay.
actually open and ready for love. Like, not like maybe instantly, but to
Yeah.
date and like be open for it because of certain circumstances.
Yeah.
So I will say, like, as I'm dating, I'm kind of second guessing the red flags. So I'm like, but is that really me? Is that like, should I give them a chance first before I meet them? So what do you think?
Um,
Like
I
on
mean,
texting.
like on text and like there's a couple of flags. I say if you have a really good gauge on who you are, trust your instinct, right? Trust your gut instinct, and go with that. However, if not, there's sometimes it's like, listen, first impressions aren't reliable. They're
Yeah.
not. Think of how many times we've like introduced ourselves or been somewhere and I walked away and said, oh my God, did I say that? Like, what do they think about me? Like, what did I say? So they're not always reliable. So why not? And it doesn't have to be. That's why I always say first dates need to be more casual. A lot of people go on those first dates, connect, and have a 5-hour date that night, and then they're all emotionally. It's great to go with that feeling. We all love that feeling. But if you're really looking for love, you need to do this and make a little bit more wiser decisions. So yeah,
Like
I say
sometimes.
I think it's trust your instinct, and if there's not a real heavy gut feeling, like it's so he doesn't text properly, or he doesn't
Yeah.
always text openly or enough. That's a conversation. Maybe he's just not a texter. You know what I mean? So over dinner, he might say, look, I'm on the phone all day at work and I'm just not into texting when I get home from work. So it's definitely a conversation.
Yes, and that's what I found is trusting my instincts.
Yeah.
Like there was some things that I was like, this kind of feels like he's lying. This kind of feels like he's just
Yeah.
bypassing my feelings. This guy kind of seems like he just wants some ass. So I
Yeah.
was like, gave him a little bit more of a shot, gave him a little bit more of a shot, and then in the end, I was like, sorry, I'm not really into Netflix and chill. And he's like, Netflix and chill question mark. I'm like, yeah, you said that in other words. And he was like, I'm just trying to see you. And I was like, okay, this guy's a douche.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is like, we so many times we want that person to work out because we're ready, we're anxious, or we see something in them. But the truth is, I mean, a man who wants you, a man who's intentional, a man who has clarity and knows what he wants, trust me, he's going to be very articulate. He's not going to waste any time because he knows you're a catch. So he's
Yeah.
not going to be with the bullshit. And that's another reason, especially women need to pay attention to, if you're attracting emotionally unavailable men,
Yeah.
because you can tell right off the bat whether or not they can communicate. You can tell
Yes.
if they're going to be emotionally unavailable, because they have trouble communicating, period. whether it's about feelings or not. So yeah, it's something to keep in mind.
And it doesn't usually get better. I just got out of a relationship where he couldn't communicate his feelings, and yes, it got a little better 2 years later, and still we literally broke up because he didn't want to communicate his feelings.
Yeah.
So it did get better,
Yeah.
but it was still like the hard part. So
Can get better. It can get better, but you know how that is. I mean, they've done this their whole life, like for how many years? So you're trying to break a habit overnight. So it's too easy to get triggered and come back to that same response. And it's like, we just talked about this 2 weeks ago about how you were going to tell me, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So listen to your gut, not your like, he's not doing it right kind of thing, but more like, ooh, this kind of feels off. This kind
Yeah.
of feels like maybe his intentions aren't good. One of the red signs that I noticed when I was like just out having fun at a club is this guy was like kind of being overly protective of me and like kind
Hmm.
of jealous, and like guys were
Yeah.
looking at me because I was dancing, and he literally kind of got in their face being like, that's not cool. I'm like with this girl, and I'm like, I just met
Yeah.
him today.
Red flag waving.
Big red flag. That's a
Yeah.
big one, I would say.
So that's a huge one. But you know what? The problem is so many women that have had bad experiences or don't have their confidence where they need to be will read that as, oh my God, girl, he's crazy. Like he likes me that much. Or like they'll take that as a positive. And it's like, that's not, that you're going to find yourself in a situation months later and be very unhappy. So you've really got to have a good grip. It's kind of coming back to trusting your instinct. Is it your intuition or is it your insecurity? Like, let's say cheating. I think it doesn't add up. He might be cheating, but is that your insecurity or is that your intuition? So you've got to have a real good grasp on who you are so that you can discern between the two.
Ooh, I like that. Intuition or insecurity. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was definitely my intuition being like,
Yeah.
that's kind of weird. And that's a really controlling, possessive man.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that he's the one that ended up going to jail that night. So,
Yeah.
like, you don't, that's a big waving red flag. That's one
Yeah.
that I could, yeah, shut that down.
Hmm.
So, what other like when you're dating, um okay, this is another one. This is great cuz I'm dating right now. Um this guy was like, "Oh, he rescheduled my date because he had a headache." And I think he really had a headache. But then he went with his friends and sent me the picture. So he obviously wasn't like hiding. I was like, "Oh, you're feeling better. That's great." And he's like, "Oh, I just saw my friends and then I went back home." Then he texts me later another picture and he's with his friend still, and I'm like, "Wait, why did
Yeah.
you say you went back home if you are still like that was a lie, I think." But you
Yeah.
don't
Y-
know.
Yeah, and you see how you're already like having those doubts, you're already questioning it. That right there tells you like his words aren't aligning with his behavior. And if you're kind of like confused by it, for me, listen, I'm 44 years old. So for me, I'm like at this point, like I don't have the energy. Like I'm not even gonna ask you like why it doesn't add up and why you're sending pictures. Like it's just a deal breaker. So you have to be really aware of like what you want and what your standards are and what your boundaries are. You know, when I was younger, I probably would have had the whole conversation like, do you have a headache? And like, oh, okay, I guess. And I do like him. So I'll go out next time and see what happens. But listen, you and I, you could have a fever like you did the other day. I can have a migraine on a regular day, and I'm still busting out my coaching sessions and our, you know, your podcast and my series. And yeah, we're still doing it. Why? Because we want to, because we're moving with intention. So I fail to believe that. I've been out on many dates with men who don't feel good or had a migraine, but they were taking advantage of the opportunity they had to date me. And that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, he's like, "I think it's a level 4 now." I'm like, "A level 4? That's not even pain." I'm like,
Right.
I'm in bed, like, I was literally in bed with a fever,
Yeah.
and I'm like, still not that bad." But I mean, I was in bed, but I was just like, "Level
Hey, baby,
4?"
are we talking headaches or hurricanes? Come on now.
I know. I was like, "You coulda just said that you had a birthday party." But
Yeah.
he said migraine, and I was like, "Okay, whatever. Okay, whatever. Let's just drop that part." But that
Yeah.
bothered me because he sent me the picture. Does he not think I'm smart that I can put one on one? And he's like, "Oh, that's just my friend, the birthday boy. Maybe it's
Yeah.
from previously, but it's just a little off.
Well, think about this. Like if you watch, like if you ever follow some people like defund simping, or they're like, oh, women test, like, or a couple other guys will say, oh, women test men all these different ways. Well, let's be real. Men test women, and that's exactly
Men
what
test women.
yeah, it's testing to see if you'd be okay with that. And women who are okay with that, they're not going to end up in the in first place. Trust me, they're not. He's going to have more respect for the woman who's like, oh, I'm not into that. That means your value just became this high, and now it's like, oh man, like she don't put up with any of that. If I'm serious about her, then he knows he has to step his game up and come to you correct. But if you're up here and he's like, oh, she ain't with that shit, he's going to dismiss himself. He's not going to keep trying because he sees that you value yourself up here. So yeah, you've got to set those standards. But that's just a man testing you to see if you're open to his bullshit.
Yeah, and also how to communicate it. I will say that is that if you're just like, "Oh, do you really have a headache?" That is not the way to go about it.
Yeah,
Um, it's maybe more like talking and honestly me saying, "Oh, you're feeling better now. That's great." Was a way
yeah,
for me to see what he said.
yeah,
We actually
absolutely.
ended up talking on the phone, which was good. I was like, "This is
Yeah.
a little weird on
Yeah.
text," but yeah.
Let's back up too, because sometimes there are good men who do those things. I want to point this out because I love my men, but sometimes men behave that way because they've been conditioned by the women they've been with. They're going to ask, like you just said, what you don't have your headache anymore? I thought you had a headache, or they're going to come with that defensiveness, right? So
Yeah.
they've been conditioned to kind of like test the waters and behave this way.
Ooh.
That's another reason to be like, hey, I'm just a really good open, like that's a chance for you to say, hey, I'm a really big on, I'm big on communication. I'm glad you're feeling better. That's great, and keep it moving. It doesn't mean that red flag has to be a deal breaker for everybody. It can just be like, okay, I'm making that mental note, and let's see how he continues to behave, because he has to get to know if you're even worth it too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with this one, we talked on the phone. I'm gonna see how it goes. He
Yeah.
sent me pictures from earlier, so it was
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna see where it goes. I'm just practicing in this time right now. I'm practicing communicating. I'm practicing dating. I'm literally practicing. Like these dates that I go on right now are practice for me.
Yeah, and it should, listen, if dating is draining to any of you watching or listening, if dating is draining, you're doing it wrong. You're not
Yes.
you're in not in a space to be dating, because dating is a chance to get to know yourself, what you want, what you don't want, what you like, explore new things. And not every date is going to turn into your partner. It could be a networking, a networking opportunity. It could be a great friend. And I think I like how you said you're just kind of going with the flow, because Tia, if you think about it, listen, it's very subjective, right? We can feed our mind with whatever narrative we want it to fit. But I'm glad that you have an open mind, because the truth is even though he had a headache, if he was really, like, let's say, a douche, he might not have sent you pictures at all. Like,
Yeah.
F her. But he was like, hey, I'm out with my friends. So it wasn't like he was being deceitful. It's like,
Yeah.
I have a headache. How that stuff happens. Maybe I don't have the capacity to go on a date. I have a migraine, but guess what?
Yeah.
I'll Susie at the local bar for a second. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
get it. Things happen. I think you have to be flexible, but it ultimately comes back to how aware of what you want, what you need, what you're looking for. You know what I mean?
Oh
How well
yeah. And
on it. Yeah.
not assuming,
Yeah.
because honestly, yeah, he could have had a headache. They're his best friends. It's his
Yeah.
birthday. He didn't go to a bar. It was more like a home
Yeah.
thing. So like, yeah, but it's good to be aware of it. And now I have like one little thing that I'm like, okay, but let's see how things go. Blah blah blah. It's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, what was I was about to say something. Um, yeah. I just totally blanked. But I think you ladies should go check out this book. It's Red Flags Explained. It's really, really small, which is great. You could literally put it in your purse. You could keep it by your bed. And as
Yeah.
you date, like just continue to look at them. So let's say they're dating and there's a
Okay.
few maybe littler red flags. Like, I don't know what's a little one. I would say they call their ex crazy, only one, like one
Okay.
ex crazy. But if they're calling all of their exes crazy,
Right.
then it's like, why are they bringing it up? But
Yeah.
I feel like that's just something an overused. I feel like all guys say their ex was crazy.
Yeah. I mean, and listen, it is. It's something that, like, you can, and it depends what kind of, like, I think age range you're in sometimes. It's kind of like, oh yeah, all my exes are crazy. Like she's just that. I think if it's in a, it's also how they deliver that message. Like, do they follow up like, if she's crazy because she did this and talk shit about her? Then it's like, man, listen how he talks about his ex. If you become his ex, you could be crazy and be sounding like this right here. So you pay attention to the words they use. If they're just like, hey, my ex is crazy, she did this, she did that. You can also find out how accountable somebody is. Because what if he says, yeah, I wasn't the best. You know what I mean? And so
Oof.
there's growth in there. I'm attracted
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah, I know. It's nice when, I mean, it's rare, but when they take accountability. Yeah, we didn't work out. I blah blah blah. They blah, like it's both. It's always
Yeah,
both sided. I'm sorry, people who think it's
yeah.
just them. It's a
I say that.
reflection, and if you can't learn from your relationships, you can't grow.
Yeah, I always say it's mutual responsibility.
Yeah.
I mean, even like people say, well, he cheated, it's all his fault. But I'm like, to be honest with you, I'm not going to say there aren't things that happen, and it's not. I'm not going to say that doesn't happen. But if you take a real unbiased stance and step back, typically it's mutual responsibility. Someone dropped the ball here, then that ball dropped, and then this became a cycle, then that fed the feedback loop. It just it creates a cycle. And so, yeah, that's why if you
Yes.
want to be with someone, then you come together and you're willing and open to work through it. If
Yes.
not, as both of you are pointing fingers of who it was to blame. So, yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for doing this episode
Ah,
with me. I hope this helps. Go check out this book and maybe we'll do a follow-up and name some red flags. But I think
yeah.
this is very helpful. Go check her out. What's your Instagram?
My Instagram is Tawny Loveless. You can find me on Facebook, TikTok. My name, my website's tawnyloveless.com. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so, so much. And go check out her links in the bio.
All right. Thanks so much.